Every place carries questions. Questions written in its landscapes, its languages, its archives, and even its silences. Across the Southern Hemisphere, our stories have been shaped by trade routes and migration, struggle and imagination, and decisions made generations before we even arrived. The Southern Question is a podcast about curiosity. Together with leaders, historians, and citizens, we explore the tensions and forces that shaped our past, our present, and the possibilities that shape our future. This is where history lives. This is where history speaks. And this is where we begin. I'm Jolene Martin, and I'll be asking the Southern Question. From the west coast of South Africa, just beyond Cape Town, lies a place where history is not displayed, it is lived. Khwa is a San Heritage and Education Center, a space dedicated to preserving one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, while empowering San communities to tell their own story in their own voice. Today we sit with two voices at the heart of that mission: Michael Daiber, General Manager of Khwa, and Nashada Ndango, a San guide and storyteller. This is not just a conversation about heritage. It's a conversation about ownership, memory, and voice. And we ask, what happens when land is returned to its original stewards? Nashada, Michael, welcome to the castle. When last were you at the castle?
10 years ago.
10 years?
Yes.
And yourself, Nashada?
I think it's my first time. When I was an intern, the one group that I was interning with, they came, but I was working in housekeeping, so I didn't have a chance to come because we had a group that stayed in the accommodations and we have to clean the accommodations. So I had to stay behind and work while the other interns came here.
Amazing. And your first visit to the castle is, in my view, to maybe the most important room in the castle. There's obviously the oldest boardroom where Calvin, the CEO, is, but this is called the Van der Stel room.
Oh.
This is the room where the governors sat and made decisions about the beginnings of the Cape, so to speak.
Yeah.
So welcome to the heart of the castle. Why are you folks in Cape Town? Normally you're somewhere on the west coast. What brings you here?
Yeah, we have the World Travel Market today, and it brings a lot of international tour operators and it brings the whole of Africa and everybody who's in tourism to Cape Town once in a year. So this is our opportunity to market ourselves and to get our name out there and to make sure that we have visitors coming our way.
Michael is being very humble, isn't he, Nashada?
I think so.
Yes, because you're also, is it WTM award winners?
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. What have you won with them?
So last year, at the end of last year, we won the Responsible Tourism Award for the best local sourcing restaurant in South Africa. And for that we won gold, and then we automatically got through to the world contest, and then we won gold in the world also. That was in London. So we're really happy, very proud. And it's basically just for sourcing local, making sure that we don't buy our food from the great big monopoly suppliers, and that we don't buy our drinks from the big monopoly producers of beers and soft drinks, but we find local people who produce things, and we make friends, and we learn about them, and they learn about us, and kind of that makes your food taste different, and makes people come again, because it doesn't taste like the neighbor and the next neighbor and the next neighbor, because we don't buy from the same places that they do. And it's fresh, and we make friends, and then there's a very different energy in the food.
Before I ask you to take us on a virtual walkthrough, Nashada, Michael, tell us about the origins of Khwa. Have I said it correctly?
Yes,
Yeah.
You say it so
Thank
beautiful.
you.
So many years back, I would say in the beginning 90s, the San people and were invited to go to attend a Khoi and San conference. So this was the first time ever that when they hold this World Khoi and San conference, that they actually invited Khoi and San people to this conference. And it was the very first time that all different San communities from across Southern Africa came in one room. And they got together, and it was an amazing experience to see how people really looked at each other and couldn't figure out, well, what was the lingua franca, what was the one language that we all could understand. Everybody spoke in a different Tic language, but there was not one single language that could be understood. And I think that was the most incredible experience. But nevertheless, at that conference, they said that all San should work under one blanket, should stand together, should empower themselves to speak with a voice in the international field, into the United Nations, and to be considered as true indigenous peoples of Southern Africa. And that's where this whole process started. And eventually, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years later, they formed an organization which they called WIMSA. And at the time, WIMSA was there to really bring all these communities together, to network, to lobby, to really go out and to speak with one voice. And apart from many things like finding land and devoting time on education, there was also devoting time on poverty. And that's where the seed of Khwa was planted. An idea to have a place where all San people could have an equal opportunity to learn about tourism, but where they could also tell the story of the San to the world. So that was the concept. And then there was a big debate, where should this take place? So now you have San people from Namibia, from Botswana, from South Africa, and they're all sort of debating where this should take place. And they then thought, let's use an area which is common to us all, equally far to us all, and that is Cape Town. And that was then the beginning. The idea of having a heritage center near Cape Town was the start. And then we met a Swiss philanthropist who was also an anthropologist and showed a big interest in San. And we had no idea how much money she had, but she invited us to talk to her, and she was very eager to help. And then her first gesture was to say, let me buy land that she would like to donate to the San, where this dream could come true. So that's how it all started. So that was, now we are late 1998 or 1999. We bought the piece of land, and then a unique relationship started. So initially, there was no relationship. There was only a person who gave a farm. But eventually it became sort of a relationship of saying, let's do a partnership. And she continued to support the San people. And the San people became more interested in it. So over years, it slowly developed. We slowly developed one building after the next and started dreaming a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger. And now after 26 years, sadly she has passed away about 6 or 7 years ago. But Khwa is continuing, and it's going better every year. It's really going forward, and we basically do a few things there. Should I continue
Yes,
like this?
please.
So, initially there was this whole idea of learning about tourism, but you first have to know what you're doing before you can teach it. So we had to figure out what is tourism, how is it going to work. And then suddenly, under a lot of pressure, the principals, the San and the Swiss would say, you have been playing around for too long, now you have to really start do something in tourism. So in 2006, we had an official launch, a big party. We slaughtered some animals and invited the Minister of Tourism and sang the national anthem, and the next day we were open. And we were running the show, and we had to figure out, what is tourism? And we suddenly learned that tourism is about good food, good wine, good coffee. And we had to all figure it out. So everybody that was there, very few of those people working there have never been into a restaurant or a guest house or had any sort of experience of this kind. So we really started out slowly ourselves, eventually sorted it out. I think the first year was chaotic, but we figured it out. This was. And now, maybe it's 15 years or 10 years later, and we win an award. So, we somehow followed the right track. We followed the track where we immediately were very cautious about how we go into tourism, and we chose to follow a responsible tourism route, which just teaches you a slightly different way of looking at tourism. It's just, you have to think, what's the effect of tourism? You have to think, what's the effect on your neighbor or on the local community or on the people of the area? You have to think, what's the effect of your land, the environment? And you have to think, what's the effect of your tourism on the people working here, the staff? And that was our mission. So we always followed this route. And for some reason, we became sort of leaders of responsible tourism on the West Coast. So we were often known as, we do something right. So we could give talks about things and follow this route. So tourism is one thing that we do. And then we do training. And training we do through an internship program. So we invite young San people between the age of 20 and 30. And they are invited from all parts of Southern Africa. So we always try to have the same number of girls and boys, the same number from Botswana, from Namibia and South Africa. And they come for 6 months to do an internship at Khwa. And during the 6 months, it's not for us really a focus on accredited training. We only have 6 months, and 6 months is really because it's a challenge to bring people across the borders and to stick to what's allowed, and to give somebody the best possible time ever. So the period of 6 months is enough for everybody to get good exposure in tourism and in culture and heritage and in conservation. And how do we do it? We have 7 days in a week. 1 day is for rest, 4 days is for working practical, and 2 days is classroom. And the working practical is literally working in every sphere, every department of what we do. So in housekeeping, tour guiding, preparing food, serving food, cleaning, maintenance, working with animals and plants. And everybody goes around until you say, I would like to work with animals, or I would like to work with tourists and be a tour guide, or I love to prepare food. So then you are stuck there, and for 3 months you specialize. And then during this time, you really learn to say, I can make a cappuccino, I can do a guided tour, I can change the oil of a tractor. And then you have to graduate by developing a CV that says, this is me. I can present myself, I have confidence, I know what I can do, I can prove it with photographs and with my story, and people are then almost evaluated on the looks of their CV and the way they present themselves. So it's really trying to work and say, what do you do after 6 months? How do you change your life? How do you make it different so that you don't go back into unemployment, into poverty? So we offer students bursaries. At the moment we have about 6 students, and 3 of them are doing their masters. And Khwa or Ubuntu, it's our sister organization in Switzerland, are funding them. And then the third pillar of our work is conservation. So we have this land. We suddenly received this land. And right from day one, we really devoted our energy and our time to look after the land. We could have left it. It was a wheat field, and it was taken over by Port Jackson. And it took an enormous amount of energy and time, and it still does, to clear the aliens and to reintroduce indigenous plants. But the team and the people who work with plants are called the Green Team. And they have taught us, if you look after nature, it looks after you. And this is really what has happened. The land looks after us. We have beautiful trails. We have opportunities to earn income from game drives. We really have, suddenly, there's a lot of people that say, how did you do this? This was a wheat field, and now it's a nature reserve. Most people do it the other way around. And when we started, everybody said, you'll never do it. don't even start, Take the land and rent it off and get some income and use the income elsewhere. But we did it. And it's so incredible to see how suddenly we get more animals, more little mammals. Suddenly there's a jackal. From where does it rain a jackal? But it's there. And suddenly the water is coming back, and then you have an otter, and you have some birds coming there. So suddenly, it's so small. But for us, maybe the most incredible prize that we saw was that a year ago we had a security camera, and on the security camera we saw a leopard.
What?
And for 100 years, nobody has seen a leopard on the West Coast. All the way up. And suddenly it's there. And now we watch it. It comes every 3 weeks. It drinks water at a particular place. We have the camera up there. And it brings so much joy because it's now part, suddenly, because of this, we invited an organization that's now researching. And we see there are 3 of them. So there's one in the outskirts of Atlantis. There's one on the outskirts of Melkbos. And there's one with us. And they cross-pollinate like this. They walk long distances to have quick relationships. And yeah, a beautiful thing. Just a week ago, we signed, or exactly 2 weeks ago, we signed an agreement with our neighbors. So now Kwatu manages all this land. So if you stand at Kwatu and you look towards Azefontein, and all that land, 4,000 hectares, we are managing now. As a conservancy, we have removed all the internal fences. And we are really looking at that land so that Azefontein doesn't come closer, and that the leopard can stay there, and that we could allow our students to go there and to experience nature, and that we could take our visitors to experience it and to go on the beach and to learn about what Nashada is very much an expert about. It's what people ate in earlier times. And suddenly we have the access. We once had the tiny little farm. We now suddenly have a lot. And the amazing thing is, once when we started there, people were saying, what are those Bushmen doing up there on the hill? And now they entrust us with their land to take care of it and to run it and to get the benefit from it. And it's like a beautiful cycle.
It is.
And then the 4th pillar, the last one, is we devote time around culture and heritage. And that's a big word that says restitution. Mm-hmm. And it's about just, the translation of Bushman stories. It's the making of a book called the Ethnobotany of the Sand. And it's producing books, having a museum, or allowing young kids to come and visit the museums, developing programs for children to learn, to run a heritage festival, little things like this, snippets of it, all adding to making a culture alive and not dead, and not in a glass box, and not in the past, but in the present, and to embrace it, and to celebrate it, and to celebrate. I think just the one thing to celebrate is that, people have lived here for 200,000 years. There's not a single place on earth where people have lived so long in one place than this part of Southern Africa. Not just the West Coast, but all the way up to KwaZulu-Natal. People have lived in one place. There is a little overhang cave thing in Azefontein. And there's proof that nobody have left that place until 300 years ago. For 150,000 years. You could see layers and layers and layers of where people made fire. And it leaves behind an incredible story. The story of archaeology that Nashada can talk about, that just shows how people lived and how their life has changed and how, that what they have eaten have changed them into what we are today. This is something so incredible, and we could be so honored that the land that we live on is this land. And the vegetation that grows here is the food that people ate. That's 80% of the diet is growing still in this land. And none of us know what can you eat. If you walk in that nature, you're going to die because you wouldn't know what to eat. But that entire diet is there. That vegetation has not changed in 200,000 years. None of it. And it is still there. It's been taken over now by by wheat fields and vineyards. But the sacred land still has the story of what we ate to make us who we are today.
It makes me wonder if the secret to food security is not returning to an indigenous diet.
Absolutely.
And also, you talk about the leopard. The leopard is so revered in indigenous spirituality, and it's returning.
Yes.
It's so exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I'm in a few WhatsApp groups, indigenous WhatsApp groups, and people have posted photographs, the photographs taken at night, etc. And it's creating incredible buzz.
Yes.
Nashada, I'm coming to you. When I first encountered Batu, it was completely by accident. I love that Namibian road, and I drive it often when I just want to go for a drive. And I would zoom past at 120 Ks, see the strange word, ignore it, and then eventually it, embedded itself. And then one day I saw Sam, Spirit Shared. That's when I decided I'm going to stop. But it's such a magnificent environment. You've got the Atlantic Ocean to your left-hand side, and then you've got this magnificent land on your right with I think you've got Ierland. You've got all sorts of magnificent creatures. You drive up this road, you see this place. Now walk us through what one experiences when you get out of your car.
So it's a bit of mixture that we do there. It's a bit of future and past. So we take you through the past and then we take you into the future. So we have this amazing tours that we run there, and I'm one of the tour guides. I do multiple stuff, but now I'm going to talk about my tour guiding. So the first tour that I'm so passionate about is called Food from the Ancestors. It is our First People building, where we talk about human origins, where humans evolved, and then where everybody's origins lies. And then that's a combination with food and walking outside on the gathering trail. But we're not only looking at what the archaeologists found, what are the evidences, we are also looking at the important part, and that is the oral history, stories that people tell in the San communities. And some of these stories comprehends what the archaeologist says about the stories of humans that was once half human or half animal that could communicate each other. And because of that combination of being human and being animal, our elders still believe that if you communicate with animals, they can understand you. It is stories of stars and the moon and the hair and the reflection on the moon. And then the story always takes me back to when I was little. So full moon time, what we used to do is we play around and then we wait for full moon. When we hear grandma says, tomorrow it's going to be full moon. And then we'll be like, okay, we are going to wait to see if the hare is still on the moon guarding. And then sometimes, with boys, it's like if the hare is not there, then you have to give me something. If the hare is still there, then I will give you something. And then we will eagerly stand there and then wait for the full moon. And as the full moon rises, you see the reflection of the hare still on the moon. And everybody's so happy that the hare is still on the moon, guarding the moon. But there is a lot of story around the moon and the hare. The important part is knowing where you come from. So to our San communities, we believe that knowing where you come from is what keeps us together. So, there's a lot of politics and stuff that's going around the world, but then the origins is what keeps us together. So everybody must hear those stories. So we take you through First People, through the paintings, and these are the paintings that come from different San communities. And then these paintings tells stories, they're different paintings, but actually it's the same storyline. And then we take you through that. We have a big book where you have paintings, and these paintings were interpreted into the Naro language. This book is actually called Khwa, and Khwa means something beautiful or shining in the Naro language. We take you through that. We talk about the praying mantis. Praying mantis is important when it comes to hunting and stuff, when it comes to moon and the stories. And then we have a story of how the Khwa and the Khwa people came to South Africa. We take you through that. And then we have a story tree. And then it's been so long since I've been under a tree, listening to what people have done for the day, or what they're planning to do the next day. And then that is what the tree is for us. It's where in the day people comes together under the tree. So the tree is many things. The tree is a storage where people hang water bottles, jewelries, their skin clothes or their clothes. They just hang them there and then gathers around under the tree, talk about their activities, or women making jewelries or trying to put their babies to sleep. And that is where education happens during the day, where most of the education happens in the night. So our story tree have a lot of stories to listen to, which is in the San language. One have translation in English and Afrikaans, and then we take you to our story corner, which have like big wallpaper of a moon and the hair sitting there, a starry sky with the Milky Way, where we also have a story of how the Milky Way was formed. But when you look at also again the stories of the San people, one story have like two versions: the version of how the Kham people tell the stories, and the version of how the Kwedam speaking people tell the story of the Milky Way. And then we go to my favorite part, which is the site of archaeology, where you walk back in the past 300,000 years ago, taking a walk on the footprints of the early ancestors, learning about how they traveled across Southern Africa, what they ate, how it developed to be like making tools, how useful these tools were to them, what sort of food were they eating in different seasons, the climate change, how that affected the people, and then how people learned to adopt the lifestyle during their time and learned problem solving, which actually was transferred to the San people or the hunter-gatherers of today, of adapting a landscape and the climate, and then learning problem solving of how to survive in harsh conditions. And then from that, our tours actually goes hand in hand. We take you, we skip encounters because we're going to come back to that. We take you to Way of the Sand, which then talks about the hunter-gatherers of Southern Africa, of how they hunt and they gather. But before we go into the building, we sort of do something very important, and this is what hunters do before they go out and hunt. In the morning, an elderly person will take the bow and arrow and hand to the guy and says, may you be successful on your hunt, may you have luck on your hunt, and bring food back to us. And then as he's about to like enter the bush to go out for his hunt, he will do like a prayer or calling to his ancestor, so that they can ask God to bless him to be successful on his hunt. But then that one on our building is written in the Khwa language of Namibia, and it says, which in my language will say, and in English, it will say, ancestors, guide me, protect me, and give me luck on my hunt. They enter, and then we go in, and then on the other side of the building, we talk about hunting and tracking. And because they can't communicate loudly on a hunt, how do they communicate? They whisper to each other, but very importantly, they use hand signs to communicate, to say what animal I see or what tracks these are.
Nashada, they use hand signs. So show me something, a hunting protocol.
So that is one of the hand signs that they actually use on a hunt, and that is a giraffe hand sign. So those are the ears of the giraffe, that's the occipons of the giraffe, and that's the neck, and that is the face. So if somebody shows you that, then you know that it's a giraffe that you're tracking, or the track that you see is a track of a giraffe, or the animal ahead of you is a giraffe.
And that allows us not to speak.
Yes.
We can just show each other signals.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because the wind might carry your voice to the animal, and then you might not be successful on your hunt. And most of the questions that I get asked when I'm doing Way of the Sand is like, how is it possible for these people to understand nature so much? And I always tell them that it is the connection that people have with nature, and it's the sense of belonging that people have out there into the field. And then I always tell them that that is something that we have lost because we have modernized and we have moved away from this hunter-gatherer lifestyle. And in most cases, it was not only because of people's own free will that people decided to move away from this hunting and gathering lifestyle, but because things changed, where you have to survive with money. If you have money, you have to survive. So people sort of like wanted to like live with the pace of the world, how the world is changing. So in that way, people moved away from hunting and gathering. The other part is the space of hunting and gathering became less. Landscape became either like a farm landscape, or it's like a game reserve. It's not where you guys can go and hunt with bow and arrow. Trophy hunters that have like permits or certificates for hunting can come and hunt in this area. So with those challenges, people's life changed, and some of them lost this connection of like connecting with nature, understanding nature. But in the past, that is what made it possible for our people to understand nature and to live according to the rules of nature. So we talk around that, and then there are phrases that I always share with people, and this is what I normally used to like hear. One is treat nature with kindness, and nature can provide you with everything that you need. The other one is take only what you need and leave behind what you don't need. So if you look at how they hunted and gathered, that everything that I said sort of like blends in. Hunting don't happen every day. You only go and hunt if you need meat. If you kill like a big game animal, then you have to share with everybody so that it's not needed for everybody to just go and hunt the next days. But gathering have to happen every day. Women will go out to gather and forage every day. But this gathering and foraging is not like we find a bush with berries and then we take everything. You just take little today. Tomorrow you have to go and take a little. In that way, you are treating nature with kindness. You are showing love and respect to nature to recover and produce more food, only not for you, but the ones coming after you. We have this amazing room where you go in and then you watch this video of village life. So it is so big that it feels like you are in a village, where you see what they do in the morning, in the afternoon, late afternoon, until it ends with the evening, where they like sit at separate fires, and then in the evening come together at one fire, where they normally do a healing dance, and then it ends with that. So our focus also is not to stick with this museum routine where we only want to be in the building, but also want to be outside. So that is the life of the San people. So we have a replica village where we take you there, and then that is where you're going to learn about how they do jewelries. We just take you into the slow process of making jewelries that ends up looking like that. And then you know about how they make these skin clothes, and then what are the rules of being at the village, what women do in these daily activities of gathering and foraging, who stays behind and who goes out, who's looking after the children, why is the fire important at the village, not in the night, but also in the day. It must burn in the day. There is a saying that they say, laat jou vuurtjie brand, laat my vuurtjie brand. Which means let your fire burn and let my fire burn. Because fire is important. Fire is actually like the tree. Fire is where everything happens. In the night, people gather around the fire to talk about amazing things, do stargazing, tell stories, teach tongue twisters and storytelling. And then after that, the biggest question is, okay, take us through to how this life change that you're talking about, that people's life change. Now I have to take you back to encounters. Then I take people to encounters. And then I start with who arrived. I take you through to colonialism, when that happened, and then how that slowly changed people's life, and then how that had an impact on people's identity. That is very important. So that is sort of a very, very difficult education that we give to people. It's a bit of emotional, and then also at the same time mind-opening for people to understand why some of the people are living today in the way that they are living. So there is this stereotype where you'll hear that you'll find that in colored communities or in San communities or Khwa communities, most of the people drinks a lot. And then we take you through to why do people drink a lot? Where does that come from? How did it happen that people became alcoholics? And then how they are living today. We teach also about how people came to lose their identity, how the lifestyle changed from being a hunter-gatherer to working into somebody else's kitchen where you are not telling stories to your children. And then in the same time, in the kitchen is where you are not communicating to your children in your own language. So now your language is slowly changing to a point where your children grow up and start talking or speaking a different language. Take you through that and take you into our survivance room to talk about, after all of these things happened, Sand people became subjects of science where anthropologists or researchers developed interest into Sand people to do research on them. In most cases, not only orally, but sometimes it was like physical, where like they were measuring people and then doing cost on people's faces. Until all of these things happened and people survived all of these bad things that happened. And then again, life must move on. People have to continue surviving. And then there you see poverty comes in. So the land was what people had, what made them rich. Without the land, people became poor. And then now it's sort of you have to go and work for yourself to make money. Again, if you don't have the necessary documents that you must have, how are you going to work? Education is very important. If you don't have these documents, how are you going to go to education? If you get education, and then after that comes work, job, and then you can support your family. So most of those things are talked on that side. That is where we take you through. And also on the surviving languages, how many languages survived after all of these things happened, and then the cliques. But also you see on that side how language also evolved with this different pace of what happened, with a mixtures of like words of different languages that coming into the language, which it's not making the language as pure as it used to be. But we know with different times, language evolves and it changes. And then we teach them the clicks that we have. Proudly, I always say that we have 5 clicks. And they are the...
I thought I could do them until you just did it. Wow, do it again for us, please. So please slow it down. We really are lazy with English, aren't we?
So after that, you also need to understand, we sort of give you what we understand around nature and then about plants. So then we still have another activity to do, which is our tea tasting. We go into our herb garden, this herb garden that was started, I think, in 2010 with the help of a guy called Axel Thoma. So we go into this herb garden, we have different plants that we talk about. It's either they are medicinal or they are edible plants. And some of them are plants that was used as poison on a hunt or as a perfume to cover your human smell on a windy day to sneak to the animals and dart the animal with the poison arrows. And then some of them, I personally call them Stone Age food, because this food is like, it traces as far back as to our earliest ancestors. These were the foods that they were eating during that time. One of them that I mostly talk about is called Watsonia. So it is your underground food that you dig out, you roast on the fire, and then you eat it, which is very bitter. Luckily, last year, I had a chance to take a walk with Eljan into the field down there to dig out some of the food that was eaten, which was found in archaeological record, that we prepared ourselves and then we tasted them. But we give people tea tasting. So we teach you about these different plants, and then we end at our felt pharmacy, my felt pharmacy actually. And then we talk about some plants, medicinal plants. Some of the plants helped us a lot during COVID time, and then our neighbors as well. So there is different ingredients into this tea. So it's a mixture of loose rooibos tea and then 4 different plants. We mix them together. We tell people the rules of this medicine, because medicine works differently in a woman's body. People should know that. And then after that, you taste this tea. It's like tasting a sip of the indigenous heritage. So it's actually a mixture of everything, a mixture of the past and the future. So we just slowly take you through just walking on these steps. But when you are at Khwa, you are actually walking, wearing the shoes of the San people, the indigenous people, learning their culture, trying to figure out where your origin also comes from.
Incredible. You are just a wealth of knowledge. And I
Thank
can see
you.
why you're top of your class as well.
Thank you.
I think that's incredible. And it's important to walk people through all of that so that they can understand the fruit. But there is a root. You guys really did start from humble beginnings. And for other people who are wanting to do the same with some of their land, maybe just even in their yard, their garden at home, plant some aloe, etc. Michael, speak to us about how a model like this works. Are you able to, is it self-sustaining?
So I think we've been had a delusion that we are always saying, the moment we are self-sustainable, it will be the perfect moment. But, in spite of everything, I think the best thing that happened was when we realized that it's never going to be self-sustainable. So, we do our work really stretched far into not just running a restaurant and a tour business with accommodation. I mean, really, the work that we do in conservation or the work in education or really the work in culture and heritage is cost more than what you can do from selling coffees or inland burgers. So I think we've reached that point where we really generate more than 60% through tourism, and the rest is something that we ask for, that we really do fundraising for. We do fundraising within Khwa, so we try to use all sorts of things. A, a, something can happen big in the world, and suddenly, we don't find money coming from Europe anymore. So we raise money from visitors coming there. We try to inspire people to use to do Woolworths cards. We do big funding proposals. We do small fundraise models, and all of that comes and fills the other part of the 40% that makes us much more sustainable. So it's not just generating own income, but you have to go and ask also.
What is the relationship, if any? Because I've been to and through the Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park, where there is another globally recognized venture. Is it Aus?
Coast Lodge,
Lodge.
yes, yeah.
Is there a relationship? What is the?
It is it's a very different project. There is similarities. That's a venture between two different communities, San and the Khoi community, the San Parks Board and a private venture. So that's a sort of a full partnership relationship that they have. Their focus is mostly in tourism, and that's where they generate the income and they involve the community. So, which is a really a good opportunity for communities to get income and training and exposure in tourism. I think Khwa is slightly different. We have a private partnership with a Swiss foundation, and you have a Greater San community that has a central trust fund. And those are the two partners that we have. So it's a sort of a dual partnership. Our focus is much more on training and culture and heritage. That's very much the blood that runs through the body of the organization. And tourism is really secondary to that, although we really see the importance of getting the income from tourism. So those would be the two models. What's common to all of us is that a partnership is really something that works well. A good partnership with a good partner and a good understanding and somehow finding harmony is what works well. I think often just simply a community project, it's challenging. You always need some money, you need some partnership, and you need to make a very good choice to find a good partner.
I remember from the Kgalagadi Transfrontier Transfrontier Park, speaking to a group of people who were visiting from elsewhere in the world, and they said that they were there to hunt with the Bushmen, which I thought was so interesting. But some of their guides have studied with you. Yes, you've trained some of their guides. And chiefly in what? Hospitality or hunting?
Yeah. So they would have trained with us as tour guides. In those years, we did the accredited tour guide training and helped them, and that gave them exposure. We would have helped them to get driver's license. So they have excellent tour guides. Some of these tour guides at Coast Lodge are some of the best in this country. They are incredible in tracking and understanding that whole biodiversity of the Kalahari. It's incredible. They are really exceptional.
Ancient knowledge coming into play.
Absolutely.
Let's step back into the human part of it, and then we'll get back to the business again. But for a young person who is, because we're dealing with this identity question so much, and particularly in Cape Town, the city of Cape Town, it's a massive debate, and it's a push and pull, and there's tension. But for a young person coming to Khwa, who is not quite sure of their ancestry or their identity, what is the journey like for them there on a human level?
You mean the young interns?
Yes, the interns.
Do you want to answer?
Sometimes it's quite challenging for some of them, trying to fit in with those ones who grew up knowing from which language family they are. The ones who grew up knowing what is a healing dance, what does it mean to a woman when you say gathering or foraging, and then the ones who grew up in modern settlements or like in urban areas, coming for this training and wanting to learn this. So which means they have to take baby steps. They have to learn from the start of like, okay, these are the different language groups and these are the different language families and I fall under this one. And then this is how things were done in the past. And then this is how some of them are continuing today. And this is how some of them are not continuing, but like struggling and then trying to survive and stuff. So in some of them, it is challenging, yeah.
Yeah,
I found that there are so many different communities and each community has its own challenges and its own background and its own sort of competition with other groups. I found that you find often that young people arrive there and they are very much looking down on San culture. They are almost saying, I am not part of this. Almost as if they are scared to say it. They come often from communities where others are looking down on them, where they are considered to be drunk and unemployed and thieves and steal poachers. And then often they suddenly am now in a San heritage center. So I'm not part of it. And then something incredible happens. People make a connection. And when that change takes place, you see an incredible fire burning. You find that somebody moves into this San culture and with so much passion. And it's almost like somebody who becomes a Christian or finds a faith or something. There is this, like you say, the fire that burns in them. And that's often seen, I have seen it also with our local community. Some of the people who live in Darling, who work in the spa, who looked at Khwa in the beginning and talking about diamonds, who are now suddenly looking at it differently and just say, but this is incredible. People have this knowledge about nature and culture, and it stretches back and it makes people different and far more powerful. And this is so interesting to see that happening. And very often, I'm really proud to say that Khwa has only 30%, sometimes 25%. The most ever is 30% international visitors. The rest are South Africans. People who come there because there is something that draws them there. There is some connection that they make. there's something that says, I belong here. This stretch far back, and I should belong here. And this is, I think, the most greatest achievement that we have done, that we were able to put near Cape Town a place that brings the community there and that makes them proud of who they are. It links them to their ancestors and their heritage. But the same with young San people who come there, who suddenly realize, I can be different. I am unique and special. It's really such a powerful thing to see.
I think you're going to see a rise in city kids who make peace with their indigenous ancestry, coming to learn some of your ancient skills. I hope so. That's the place where we're at right now. In the city of Cape Town, we are now seeing that they're getting younger and younger, the awakening and the acceptance of indigenous roots is happening younger and younger.
Yes.
And so I look forward to them experiencing a place like Khwa.
Yeah.
In the future, I would like to know, would you want to see this kind of concept scaled and even more wider spread, Michael?
I think you've put your finger on the point. I think there is no stop anymore. It's going to grow. It is just happening, and it's happening faster and faster. And I just so hope that people can keep politics out of it and focus on culture and the importance of not just on politics or the voice that speaks the loudest, but to really sincerely look at culture and heritage, because I think that's where the scale will really multiply.
Amazing. Now, I know in my research, I found out something fascinating about you, that you speak Mandarin. Yeah, how many languages do you speak, actually? How many languages do you speak?
Let me count. I speak Khwa. I do try a little bit of Khwa, Afrikaans, a little bit of English. I can just understand the basics of isiXhosa. I grew up in PE, in Motherwell. And then currently I added Mandarin to my language bucket list. And there are more to come. I'm still looking forward to learn Japanese and Korean, mostly South Korean. But I did Mandarin. So in this tour guiding...
Wait, how many does it? That's like, what, 8, 10?
It's Khwa, Afrikaans, English. It's a little bit of isiXhosa and then Mandarin.
I think you've been gracious. I think we're sitting at 7 or 8 there. This is, the castle is where Kritoa did a lot of her translating. So this translation theme is heavy here. Okay, why Mandarin?
In this career that I am now, as a tour guide, as a storyteller, you want to tell these stories to people to grasp. As they're leaving the country or leaving the place where they visited, they must carry the stories with them. And that is where preservation comes in. If people remembers what you told them, they can take that story and go and tell it to someone. And that way the stories are preserved. A couple of years ago, I had 5 people, 1 young man, and then 4 middle-aged women. And then I did the first people tour with them, and that's the very important tour. It have very important information to people to carry with, because we talk about, like I've said, we talk about human origins. And then in the beginning, it's as if they were understanding me whenever I asked them, "Do you understand?" And then this guy asked them, and they were like, they understand. And then as we continued, I can see from their facial expressions that in a way they seemed lost. And then we finished the tour, and I was like, after that, how was the tour? And they were like, the tour was amazing. The meat was amazing. It's our first time having a braai of our own with gay meat and stuff. And then I asked this young man, did they really understand the story? And then he asked them, do you guys remember what she was talking about? And then the way they were giving me is I can see that the information got lost somewhere. They did not really properly understood what I was saying. So I thought I could learn like a language that these people understand, and it was Mandarin. But at that time, I didn't know that in the future there would be an opportunity for me to learn Mandarin. So at that time, I was watching Mandarin dramas. I could pick up some words from there and there. And then the Department of Tourism sent an email to the guide saying that there's an opportunity to learn the Mandarin. It is a co-thing with South African Department of Tourism and then Chinese government and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to give it a try. So I applied for it. And then there was this interview. And then it was many of us. And then we did this interview, and then I think 23 of us were there. We made it, and then we did the first part of the course, which is HSK1. And then from that, 15 of us were picked to go to China for cultural immersion. And I was like, is it really going to happen? Am I really going to China? There was a lot of things because of like, there was physical examination. You have to go to doctors to have like your lungs checked, your livers checked. You have to go and do blood tests and all of those things. After we checked those things, I struggled a bit because I didn't know whether they're going to take me. I'm on prosthetics, and then I'm with the crutch. And is it going to be? Am I going to slow the team down on that side? But then they picked me. And then we went to Fujian. We stayed there for 3 weeks at Zhangzhou College of Technology and Science, where a lot of amazing things, where we experienced a lot of amazing things. We stayed there. We had classes for long hours in the morning from 9 until 2. There was lunch and snack breaks in between. And then again from 2 until 5. So that is the class time. And then there were like times where they will take us out for shopping and things and for sightseeing. And then I thought that we were only going to stay there. But then there were some surprises of excursions where we went to Hunan province. And then they took us to the Avatar Mountain in Changchechie. So we went to Changchechie, we went to the Avatar Mountain, and it was a lot of steps that you have to take, a lot of stairs to go. And I was like, how am I going to manage this? And then the guide said, no, take your time, take it slow. I will walk with you when the other guys are faster. And then I ended up being faster than the other guys.
Of course.
And what was amazing to me is how developed China was. China is a very much developed country in many things. The city is so clean. The discipline that people have is so much. The respect that people have for each other and the love that people have for foreigners. I mean, maybe it's different in some other places, but in the place that I was, people really, really loved us. And then the technology development there was amazing. So this one day we were supposed to attend a class, and then we were late and we didn't know which way to go, and then we were just roaming around there. And then we ended up at this classroom where these students, these youngsters were making robots and stuff. So these robots can dance, they can jump, they can do a lot of things. And then we found these guys who were working with their laptops and stuff. And then they were sort of like working on this bullet train. And then I'm not sure what they were renewing there because it's already fast. So it was amazing to see how things are on that side. And then the future between South Africa and China looks very promising. There's a very strong bridge that is there for China and South African. Yeah, and that is how I got to learn Mandarin.
Insane. You know, our very first episode was around language, and we spoke about if we want to prepare our children for a BRICS future, then we need to be looking at Mandarin and Russian. I had no idea that you spoke Mandarin. So you are here as a manifestation of what we spoke about in episode 1, and it's profound to me. Now, is this the future? Is this what it looks like, Michael? If we want, because at the moment there are some parents thinking, oh, our kids are going to go into hospitality and tourism. they should be learning new languages, no?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because we're going to be dealing with Russia, Brazil, India, China. So this is the way of the future.
Yeah.
And how exciting that you have it at part 2.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we should just turn everything that has happened on its head and try and find the new ways, and it's definitely find new relationships. It's not just going to be German and English anymore, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I want to close off with something which will continue, because your Heritage Festival has now just exploded into a massive date on the social calendar in South Africa.
Yes.
People flock in from all over the country, from all over the world. What happens at the Heritage Festival?
It's very simple. It's the San people inviting South Africans to enjoy South African culture through food, music, dance, art, and just enjoying a day together. So you smell all sorts of foods, you listen to all sorts of indigenous music, and you just, for one day, you loosen your collar and you just reach over to your fellow citizen and say, we are one. We are all together at this same place, and we enjoy the day with good food and good music. That's basically what it is.
It is, and it's amazing to see that there are 4-year-olds running around with the Earland burger, and then there's an 80-year-old who's just bought themselves some cultural attire, and everybody's sitting around in a circle and drumming, etc. What does that mean to you, Nashada, after all of your work the whole year, and then you see the heritage? I'm giving myself goosebumps. What does it mean to you?
It's actually amazing. What stands out there is the word that we use in South Africa, Ubuntu, is of people coming together. So the celebration is not only for San people, but the celebration is for all different cultures in South Africa coming together. So what sometimes touches me is I normally am always at the entrance doing paintings on people's faces, and then you start seeing people coming with the different cultural attires. And then you start seeing what touches me is young people coming to this type of celebrations where, young people will go to these big parties and then will go and listen to Sister Bettina. But then they make time to come to these heritage festivals, to come and be part of their heritage. So this word is coming alive. All diverse nations comes together. This heritage celebration is coming together of our rainbow nation. So it started with the indigenous group, and this indigenous group has spread out all of these origin veins and these roots, and it's bringing everybody back together again. So the Heritage Festival is Ubuntu to me.
I couldn't have said it better. And it's so true what you're saying. At the last Heritage Festival I was at, there was this family, but literally it was 3 pockets of the family, and they arrived together. So at the end of it, there were about 9 of them. And the kids came in their dungarees and the peacaps. By the time they left, they were in cultural attire and eating indigenous food. It's just so incredible to see. And strength to strength. That is what I wish for you at Part 2. Thank you for the work that you do. And the Southern question, I think, that you've left me with, which is for the audience, not for us to answer. But the question is, here it is. The model is measurable and it's scalable. And if so, why are we not all doing it? So thank you so much for that. I can't wait to see you guys again soon. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank
You for having us.
Say thank you for us in Mandarin.
谢谢.
谢谢. There you go.